Hi friends, welcome. My name's Chess, and in this video I'm going to talk about siblings and when they want to help themselves to our share of the inheritance. Hang tight, get comfy, we're going to talk about it. Hi friends, welcome. My name's Chess. I'm a psychotherapist, I'm a relationship coach, and I talk about pretty challenging, difficult, toxic, narcissistic families, all of the above. And in this video, I'm going to dive in a little bit more to our challenging relationships with siblings. And I really want to talk basically about siblings who really like other people's money. And hopefully this is not the majority of families. I really genuinely, from the bottom of my heart, hope and wish that this is only relevant for a few of us. But for those of us who do have challenging relationships with our siblings, it seems that so often it can come back to this idea of money and, sadly, very specifically, inheritance. But before I dive into the idea of what I really think that money represents in difficult families and potentially how we can manage those situations, I want to just pause on this idea around what our share of the inheritance may be. And I really want to throw out this idea of our fair share. It depends where you are. There are some places, some jurisdictions that have laws around parents having to leave a minimum to every child. Basically, there's nothing really set in stone, because who knows how much money there's going to be left in an estate at the end of somebody's life. So it's very hard to legislate or to define what inheritance must be or should be left to various different family members. I really like the idea of our fair share of inheritance, which means that it's not necessarily equal to that inheritance that another sibling or another family member gets, but it's still reasonable. It feels like nobody is being made a favorite of, nobody is being punished for something, that people are being supported with what seems fair. So for example, it might be that one sibling has a disability or really does need more support than another one. And it might be in that situation that it is reasonable to say, okay, well then we're going to adjust the allocations. We're going to make sure that we are really looking after someone who needs it, if maybe more than someone else. And hopefully, I would think in a lot of families that is seen, that's acknowledged, and that's supported, because we care about each other and we want to support each other, and we can understand, yeah, that someone else does have a bit more of a need than another person. That can definitely happen, and I really don't want to kind of present something different. I don't think that inheritances have to be absolutely, this person got this much, therefore I get this much. That person got left that item in the estate, this, therefore I need something of the same value. For me, that's very tight, and it really ties into this idea of that there can be a lot of rivalry, potential jealousy, and challenges within our relationships. So I really do hope, if we're having conversations or thinking about these situations, that we are able to approach them from a perspective of being reasonably open-hearted and pragmatic. That said, I do think that there are a lot of situations, hopefully not common, but there are a lot of situations where the fairness doesn't happen. There can be inequalities between who's left what, and there can be some nasty tricks and even some kind of people trying to manipulate or even help themselves to money and inheritance, that either they weren't allocated or that a sibling thinks that they deserve more than another one. So let's get into this idea of what's actually going on. What is the motivation behind a sibling, one sibling saying, yeah, I want more money, I deserve more money than the other person. I want that, I feel entitled to that. And yes, we could be talking narcissism here, but not necessarily full-blown, because money really can be a very sensitive issue, I think for good reason, because we live in a society that's very dominated by money. In our society, money very, very, very often indicates power, indicates status. And there is this kind of idea, I think, that the more money, the better. It seems that money often equals happiness, equals a lot more freedom, kind of maybe means superiority. And that's where I think that the money in families can get so difficult. Because really siblings, if there is sibling rivalry, which can be really normal when we're kids, when we're young, but when we grow up, hopefully we are taught the values of sharing with our siblings and with friends, being kind, understanding other people's needs as well as our own. When we come from families who don't nurture and don't model and don't actually even subscribe to the idea that everybody has needs, every sibling has their own desires and their own wants, and on our kind of give and take and an equal playing field to the other siblings. When that doesn't happen, for example, in a narcissistic family, when we have a favorite golden child and either an invisible child or a scapegoated child, someone that isn't as worthy, is not seen as good enough, is not seen as being as desirable as another. That's when these family roles that may not have explicitly ever been spoken of, they can come out in money, because that's, and it's black and white. If it's on paper where one sibling is going to be gifted or given or inherit a bunch more than another one, and there isn't a solid reason for that, that's when we can really see in black and white the inequalities in our families. And so then I think on the flip side, if we have a very equal distribution in a will, for example, and there is a sibling who doesn't subscribe to that, the fact that they are equal, they are kind of level pegging-ish with their siblings, that they are just as worthy. Everybody brings their own value to the table. When a sibling who has a lot of deep insecurities or harbors a lot of jealousy or resentment towards another sibling, it might just basically be too much for them to bear to see that on paper they're kind of seen the same as their sibling. They want to bring that rivalry back. They want to prove their dominance, their superiority, their power. And that's when they can actually, I think honestly, genuinely feel, sometimes they genuinely feel that they have a right to this money, that it's theirs, that it's actually theirs, because they believe up here that they are better than one or more of their siblings. So as always, let me know what you think. Do you think there are other reasons why siblings might want to help themselves to money that isn't theirs? If you have experience of this, please leave your thoughts in the comments, especially if you're like a legal professional. Let me know, especially in your jurisdiction. Let everybody else know where they can find some resources to help. So what do we do when we're dealing with a really difficult sibling and we find ourselves in this kind of situation? Well, I've got a couple of thoughts. First, maybe three. The first one is, it's really good to realize this early, understand what we're dealing with. Once we can see it, we can do our best to plan. We may actually not be able to do a lot, but seeing it has the advantage, the psychological advantage as well, that they don't surprise us and that we can't be disappointed and that we are really mentally prepared. And if we know it's going to be difficult for us, if we know it's going to potentially really make us feel bad or really get to us, maybe rightly so, really push our buttons or be very challenging for us in actually financial ways, then we really need to plan as early as we can, even for a worst case scenario. The advantage of doing this is that we then have the power. The other advantage of doing this is then that we hold the power. We don't want to give the power to our siblings or to the rest of our families if they're going to not be supportive and potentially be vindictive and unfair towards us. The earlier on we can see this, the earlier on we can be motivated to try to protect ourselves and to do whatever we can to make sure that we really don't need them as much as possible. So if that means that, you know, we're in our 20s and we're like, oh, there's something going on, I need to basically, I know that I can't rely on these people, I need to get on in life, I need to hustle and do my thing, then I actually don't think that's a bad thing anyway. I think it's sad that that would be the motivation behind us, but I think it is important for us to go out and make our mark on the world, and it gives us motivation and meaning, and it's just really good for us in general. So being able to do that as much as we can, and being true to ourselves as well, I think that's really important. Hopefully we can support ourselves and not be reliant on our family, and not think that we are going to get specific amounts, because that does keep us hooked in. And if it's a difficult family, we don't want to be hooked in just for money. And I know this can be hard, especially if we've grown up in a family where there is a lot of money, or we're kind of used to it and it's really a part of our culture. Again, it's important about us having our own autonomy in these situations. If we need to as well, then we might also think about, well, what game might my sibling play here? We can just try and work on diffusing and walking away from unnecessary rivalry, hopefully really try and reduce problems that might come on later. So prevention, if we can, is useful. That it's also really important for us to remember that there is more to being wealthy than just having money in a bank account. I know we need money to live, especially in our society today. There is so much pressure and it's getting more and more and more expensive. I'm not going to be a Pollyanna about this. I know we need money. I also know that there are studies out there that show that once we have a certain amount, above that, it starts to taper off. Once we've got really the basics in our lives covered, it doesn't really make us feel as good as maybe we've been led to believe. So realizing that there are so many other important things in life, and hopefully we can be wealthy on a number of different levels, with people who care about us, with occupations or volunteer work or communities who really make us feel valued. And we can enjoy nature, we can enjoy animals, we can enjoy just the simple things in life. And those things at the end of the day can make us really feel like we are living a life of wealth and abundance. The last thing I would say is that if you do feel that you get to the point where you need to fight your corner, potentially fight legally for certain amounts of inheritance, I think sometimes there are arguments to do so, sometimes there are arguments to think it's not worth it, and that is very personal and individual to the situation. There's no right or wrong there, there's no judgment here. But what I would say is that if you are going to fight, or if we are ending up going into more conflict around this, I think it's very important to think about our principles and really how much we're willing to put into this, and to stay firm in who we are and our ideals, and things like if we're coming from families who aren't kind, don't think about other people, are not fair, and don't have integrity, then I think it's really important that we act those things. We need to be those people. We need to model that behavior, because otherwise, are we any different from them? Are we any better than them? We're just on the other side of the ring. We're still in the fight and we're still slugging it out. And if we genuinely believe we're coming from a space of reason and fairness, then it's important to keep those values and that integrity behind us in case we do get stuck in some kind of argument. Some people love to fight. If we're talking narcissists, that's how they get their kicks. They want to be in an argument. So it serves their purpose on so many levels, actually, to not cooperate, to be antagonistic, and to look for trouble. So really thinking about that part, thinking about what is important to us. Maybe we've got what we would like to have as an outcome, but really what is our minimum? And thinking about whether it's worth it or what it's worth to keep fighting in those games. I do think it's important, actually, very important sometimes, that we do stand up for ourselves, because if we're not, because when we don't stand our ground, because if we don't stand our ground of people who are bullies and extremely unkind and who are used to pushing us around, that can make us feel a lot worse as well. But again, it's a fine line, and we really need to be checking in with ourselves and thinking about what is it that's right for us, what's best for us. And so often that comes into what aligns with me, my integrity, and my values. Friends, I've gone on long enough. Please let me know what you think. Drop me a comment below, like, subscribe. Drop me a line through my website if you'd like some one-on-one support around this, and I will see you soon. Take care. Bye for now.